This is DeLoff Stenquist. He and I are former board members of the HOA out there in Green Valley. He's a retired professional landscaper, and we were both on landscape committee. So Austin invited us to talk about this.
I just asked Sean to come
Stuck a
in.
while there.
We talked last week about the weed control along 45th and kind of what our future plan was there. And I had just kind of asked Sean out of curiosity, just as an option for some of this area along there. If the county was to get rid of the weeds and plant some grass or something out there, if the HOA in the long term would be interested in taking over the maintenance, just like they do in Berkeley Park, of mowing the grass and making sure that the landscaping is kept up. So I just wanted to have him come in and maybe have a little discussion on that. If anybody, Lance, I don't know if you have thoughts on that or how that works with Berkeley Park or what you think, but.
Berkeley Park's is kind of taken upon themselves to do it. They put it out there. They put in the sprinkling system and
Required of the developer, which didn't happen when you're developed. That's one of the changes we've made.
Yeah, as I understand it, Rockwell put that in. Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so we were just talking about in some of these areas where they border neighborhoods that have HOAs, if the county was to do something like that to mitigate, and then we could come up with an agreement that the HOA would do the mowing and take care of it, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
it's certainly an option, but it's an expensive option. Put some of that stuff in first and to try to get it established, especially the sprinkling systems. We don't have any pressure irrigation or surface water irrigation, and so where does the water come for it? How does that hook up? And those are some of the challenges with having an HOA in charge of it.
But
Is
you guys
where
have,
the park come from?
don't you have some soils and debris areas in your HOA?
Inside the subdivision, we do.
So you have a false water hookup.
Yeah, we have landscape sections right at the intersections too, they could be tapped off, to go with that.
So I think it's something that if that's the route we decided to go, obviously we'd want an agreement in place prior to doing anything with the HOA that they were gonna take care of the maintenance and everything of it, so we aren't stuck with it.
I think a lot of this was just to see if there's any interest in doing that, because the other option. Seeding with a low growth grass.
Yeah.
Dry land grass.
Well, the last.
That was my question. I know there's a drought resistant grass that's been, I had it in my backyard in Utah, and if I didn't water it, it was still green.
Yeah, and if we did, well, I don't know if the type they're talking about is one to use on the roadside that only grows.
I think from what Judd was talking to me about before, it does grow taller than that, but it doesn't grow nearly as tall as kochia does.
So this might mean a little more to you than it does me. That's what was hydro seeded out there with the project. I don't know how tall this grass is.
Rockwell still is in charge of the HOA at Berkeley Park. They have not established their own.
It's all turned over now.
It's what?
It's all been turned over now.
Oh, it has been?
Yeah.
And what is your HOA fee for each homeowner?
$150 a year.
Yeah, see, we started out with 25. Then when we turned it over, they went to 100. But if we were to do that, that would more than double our landscaping area and water diversity. We're not set up budget for that, and I think it would be a vote, and I think, I have a hard time believing that people, we managed to get it up to 135. But we'd have to go over 200, to be able to handle all that maintenance. What we were thinking, after Austin called us, we'd been talking about how to get rid of the weeds, but we'd also like to look at some maintenance-free landscaping options and see
this is probably because of the cost of that type of landscaping. This is probably this grass you're talking about is probably the best option. Jutted weeds, they've got some type of chemical they can put on the stud there over that too to keep it lower. But, you know, the kochia is from the construction. We talked to H&K to see if they'll finish with hydroseed. Those in the contract.
It's all been hydroseeded.
Yes. it had.
So they just hydroseeded it under the dead weeds.
No,
They
no,
didn't think it was done.
not
Prior
any
to
weed.
that,
So
Probably.
is that the right of way where?
Yeah,
It's from the sidewalk about, I'd say 14 feet, and then there's another roughly 14 feet that are total weeds.
And I just got an email this morning from Sergeant Meeker. He was planning on doing some cleanup tomorrow. See if I can meet him out there today and.
The jail crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get those down, figure out a way to.
well, unfortunately,
Coaches.
Is he gonna, what, a flail mower behind a tractor?
No, I think they're just gonna, most of them are dead. We're probably just gonna pick them up, put them in the trailer and haul them off. So
well, we appreciate that.
It's one of the jail.
Yeah, that was a good start.
That's a good use of it.
When I was president of the HOA, I asked All American Landscaping, which was our landscaping partner at that time, to spray those areas that we're talking about with Roundup 365. And they would not put down 365 because it has a sterile effect. And I don't know of any commercial applicator that will put down steroid.
That's.
Well, they were worried about it
Yeah, cause it
migrating.
leads through.
seeping into yard ways.
Well,
That range grass. is probably
primarily
a good
by a
option.
slope, no.
It would be an
Well, there's
option
a lot of
if we-
slope out there,
if we
a lot of
don't fall,
options
clean up
there.
the spring,
Well, there's
clean up.
some of those yards have got a big berm right at the back fence, so
Some do and some have a drop off into it, so.
I agree.
Well.
Yeah, it'll be an ongoing discussion. We just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to, and I just probably, HOA just needs to see that the members of the HOA have any interest in it at all, and then you can let us know on that.
Yeah, you could,
Before we
you could
move
ask
forward
for
with the plan.
For the meantime, I think we proceed with the range grass.
Yeah, that'd be great. So we'll see what happens on this. We'll just stay in touch on it.
Yep,
Okay.
okay, thanks for coming in, Sean, appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, also.
Mhm.
I think the first thing on is the fuel agreement, and I don't know if you got, did you get a copy of the signed agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. Come up and see if there's any questions. We sent it out to. I thought your attachment was the signed agreement. I opened it this morning, it wasn't.
No, here's a copy of, here's one that. Can be signed, but this is just a copy for Alex.
Thank you.
Hey, Lance did have a couple minor suggestions on this one. One was Pam Alexander's address.
Well, it didn't have a City of Idaho Falls on there before. I mean, now well, this one has municipal services director, so it doesn't have the
Oh.
Pam Alexander, and it doesn't have my name, which is fine. And they capitalized capital in here, so this version is different than the one I looked at, so.
Is it the way you'd like it, or you'd
No,
like it a
it
different
is.
way, or?
No, this is fine.
Okay.
It was just different than the version that I had
It's
looked
an
at.
engineer looking at the.
I understand.
It's not a
but
bad thing,
I
right?
understand, I am an engineer, so I'm glad that we've got one here.
John, did you look at those comments and the changes the city made when they approved it?
These
I sent you
things.
that email forwarded.
Yeah.
Week.
Yeah, what did he just handed out? Is that any different?
So
Are
that
you
is
okay
in
with
there
that?
too.
It
The,
is in there.
the
too,
one that
so-
I just handed out, John, it just is a clean version of what Roger would have sent you. So instead of it being in the track changes where the changes are highlighted, it just has them incorporated clean, but it is the same as what you should have seen in that email.
Okay, so on page 7 of 16 is where my comments had been, but they're minor enough that it doesn't change anything, so.
Okay.
I mean, like 308 Constitution Way without Idaho Falls behind it. I think we know where that is.
So again, my comments were so minor, it doesn't change anything, so I'm fine with it.
Well, we've already approved this prior to the changes and signed it, so we'll need to reapprove of the
Yeah, I thought the changes were good. I was really glad that you were able to work out an agreement. I mean, that's what I wanted from the beginning, was to be able to maintain that good working relationship that you put together a decade or more ago.
14 years.
14 years ago.
Yeah.
And to be able to continue that with just an updated and then to be able to make some increases in the capacity because of the increase in growth we've had. I just think for emergency services that we need more capacity. So yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the amended joint fuel facility agreement.
You okay with that, John?
Yes.
You want us to use your stamp? Oh, it just has one signature line, so I'll just sign it today.
Okay,
That sounds great.
Okay,
that's fine.
then we'll get you guys a copy of this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, no, we appreciate the hard work and stick to itness.
Yeah, that
To get
that
this
you put
done.
into it and Roger put in and Lisa, that you put into it as well. I know you all work together on this, so.
Yeah. It's kind of fun when you can get the communication working. Makes a lot of difference.
Well, I hope we can keep that up and,
Yeah,
you know, I'll just say the same thing I tell anybody is, if you need to talk to somebody at the city, you can always pick up the phone and call me. And I can route you to where you need to be if I can't solve it for you. So,
yeah. Well, one of the purposes of this was to get the communication at the staff level. Which, the next item, we need to talk about is the, canopy. And, you know, maybe, unless you want to stick around for that.
I can.
I know attorneys bill in 6 minutes.
I build them on a flat rate, so
Oh.
they consume up as much as they can.
The only concern we had, and this is just for future communications, is when that came over to Lance, it was just the page of specs. Which didn't really mean anything because he didn't understand what they were.
Yes,
But then when he got back to Pam, she got the drawing.
I got the drawing from Stan.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the type of thing that would help facilitate it quicker. But come on up here for a second because Lance did have. Report on that.
So Lisa, Chris, Stan and I and David Romero did meet the other day. And we went over some of the layouts of the canopy. We went out to the site, we measured, put a tape measure on the ground. And because of those discussions, there was a few changes to the layout of the canopy that we were discussed. We did discuss a number of different things, but because of the amount of conduits and the location of those conduits, it probably doesn't make sense to try to square that off and make a rectangle canopy. Okay, just because of where the existing number of conduits is. And so on this first page, you can see where all those conduits are coming out of the reader system is right pretty close to where you would need one of the canopy columns, and that's probably not gonna work.
Yeah, and we found this box is actually about 10 or 15 feet further north than this drawing shows. We did find that out. Yeah, so this first page is relatively accurate layout of the fuel facility. And then the next here is a drawing from Leonard Petroleum, their preliminary measurements drawing and estimate for this job. This is a 5-column canopy. The columns would be placed on the north side of each dispenser.
That's the dash box on there.
Yeah, and that will help minimize the rerunning of conduit and wiring and things, and that if we go with the north side posts, it should avoid all of the underground pipes and fuel lines. And after our meeting on Monday, it was determined that we would like a little more overhang in pretty much every dimension on the canopy than what was originally drawn out. And
that kind of was some of the concerns on
Yeah.
this, is see if you square it off, you'd get more coverage, that kind of another way to get the same thing.
Yeah, another way to get the same thing without actually making a rectangle out of it.
yeah, so then we have the estimate for option 1.
You
One thing,
still have to
Is
put it out
this
for
one
bids, correct?
so yeah, if you look at the total for this estimate, it came in at approximately $216,000. For this one, we'll have to go up for a bid. One thing in addition to our dimensional changes, after discussing with Director Frederickson, we do want these contractors to do their own hydro excavation, so that will be a change from this estimate. The next packet was an option 2 that they had put together for us as well. This one is a rectangular canopy, but it does not cover the northwest dispenser, which is kind of not exactly what we're wanting. So this one did also exceed $200,000. So for approximately 7.5% increase, we can have full coverage of the facility. And then the last page was just sort of a preliminary outline of what we'll expect from our contractors to put in a bid on this. Lance and Director Frederickson did bring up a couple of good things to think about. You know, how long will the fuel facility be down? Will they be able to work on this in such a way that maybe half of it could stay operational, or is the whole thing gonna have to be shut down? That's probably some information that we would need from these contractors. You know, if we need to arrange for other places for both of our fleets to be fueled, you know, elsewhere during this project, or if they're able to keep part of it operational, that would be preferred.
So something they could do in the winter time, or if you want to, because that's.
Probably wouldn't want to do a lot of this in the winter time.
It's not gonna snow. It's
So it's not just the snow.
Cold weather, you're gonna pay a lot more for cold weather concreting on some foundation, whatnot, so.
I wonder also if there's some option of some sort of temporary they could put in during construction. I don't know if there is, but
which,
just a temporary fueling place, you know, a temporary tank or something that they could bring in. For during the days of construction, I'm saying if you could set a tank off to the side or something for temporary that you could just pump out of. I don't know.
Petroleum might be able to do an above ground tank that they set up temporarily.
well, how they
They'd have to
track
be
that though.
quite sizable.
Yeah,
It would
that's
have
what
to be
That would
big.
have to be big.
it might be simpler just to be able
Find
to fuel
another
somewhere else,
source.
but
What's-
Yeah, but if we can minimize that window of where we
Yeah.
have, when we have to fuel elsewhere, that's kind of the intent of what we.
Is it possible to shut one side off while the other side?
I think it would be while they work around, so the foundations will be kind of the first thing that they do, and I think you could cone that. Right, so you could still utilize one side, but it is
When
something
it
we
comes
need to
to
bring up.
setting up the canopy itself, there's gonna be some time that you don't want other people in there.
How long would that part of it take?
I don't, looking at the size of Canopy, if they can't do it in under a week, I'd be very surprised. But you might still have a week of downtime.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's anything we can get around.
Yeah.
In order to do this.
when we also discussed, you know, time frame, we really would want to do this in the winter because that is typically our highest fuel usage season with snow removal. Both fleets are.
So far, not this year.
Yeah.
No, well, I think, I don't know if it's in the letter, but the spirit of the agreement, you know, if we agree to this, then when you put it out to bid, the county's obligated for paying our half.
Yeah.
I get the letter of it. So that's the letter of it.
Yeah, so we do have 3 potential bidders identified. It was going to be Leonard Petroleum, of course. And then Jimco, is that correct?
Jimco was one of the other
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
They are a Canopy installer. They might
Installer.
not, they will have probably subcontractors that do some of the other stuff.
And then third one was Steel Vision Construction, I believe. So
Okay, we put this on as an action item. So
Yeah, no, I would say we go ahead and approve it
to go out to bid.
to go out to bid, yeah, with the option 1. Yeah,
Okay, you okay with that, John?
I think we can work
I
together.
can read your lips.
The actual bid
Yes.
document.
yeah, you wanted to really revamp this with actual dimensions and such.
Yeah, and make it more in line with something like that.
Hey, look, the packet, so I was going through everything you've been looking at.
Yeah, and we won't be around for the future continuation of this, but I hope this is the type of get together. That have happened to avoid getting another year before. So,
Absolutely.
and thank you, Lisa. Or you thanked him. Okay. Anything else from the city?
We need to talk about the
And Phil,
billing
that was
fees,
the
right?
second item on the
Oh.
agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's Lisa. Will that involve you?
What's that?
I could stick around and answer questions
Yeah.
if there are some.
We'll be here to-
Okay.
Yes, for the
Yeah, come on,
seven.
come on up. Chris is an imposing enough figure, I can't see.
I know the least of you.
It's a compliment.
Sanitation.
Rochelle, you'll have information on this too.
Yeah,
probably.
and we haven't seen what they've come up with
Sure.
yet.
Here,
So,
Mike, you wanna stay? Are you staying?
I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just getting out of the way for the relaxed.
we need to swear in.
That's what I was just gonna say.
We can do that real fast.
I don't know, does the law allow me to send him a proxy?
I think you could do it right where you're at.
Anything he does, we'll make sure I'm pardoned on our way. out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's the way of the world, I think. so.
Great. You took half the work.
Okay, so with lots of digging into last year versus this year, we think we came up with what happened. But there are some changes as to the correspondence that Sarah sent Taylor on the 29th of July. She indicated in that email back and forth, or he indicated, I guess, that the numbers that she had sent him were 54 units at $120, which was $6,480. After digging back into that, Melaleuca Field had a 30-yard container for the summer, which is 15 units and dumped 3 times during that summer. So that would have added another 45 to that. So the 117 units that was originally charged, so that would have calculated out to the 14,418 is correct.
Do you have,
4 milliliters.
do you have an extra copy of that?
Yes.
So that, yeah, that'd be great to be able to.
Trying to see what order I put them in.
Oh, thank you. Brenda. Take care.
The series for this.
Yes.
This is.
She gave her
What
copy.
Taylor sent me.
She gave her copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did,
Okay, this is the audited sheet.
that I gave him in July.
Okay.
This is the one.
So the notes that I've made on there, well, after looking back into that, that 30-yarder got done 3 times, which is 15 units. So that would add the 45 to the 72 for the 3-yarders. So the 14,000, so if you take those.
So if I'm looking at, I have to use this page and this page is what you're saying. I look at these 54.
Oh, where's your one that shows the original? Not the
No,
one you
that's
sent
not
to
the
Michelle, but
I sent that one over to.
you sent that one over there?
That's this one right
Oh,
here.
there you go.
It's the one right in front of you. It's 117 is what it
Per
was.
mill, we could.
Yes.
Sandy down. These are the
Okay, so that's the old one. This is the one I had Amanda go through and double check for this year.
Right, but the old one
Is the one that Chris had right there.
Yeah,
So the
fields right there.
117
Okay,
right there. is what we're-
So that is correct, because you have you had 2 3-yarders done 6 times.
See, okay,
And so
adds the
each one-
72 plus the, yeah.
Yes, plus the
is the
30-yarder that got done
117.
3 times
Okay.
during the summer would have been the other 45. So,
Okay.
oh, I didn't finish that, did I? So this should have been 45 units. So this times, this added to that times the 120 comes up to this amount.
45 and 72.
So that amount
The
is correct.
117.
Okay,
This amount is not.
okay,
And so what happens there is on that same, so if you go back to the same sheet that had the, okay, this one right here. So this is the original that came from the city. So during the year, they done a bunch of can swapping.
okay.
And when they did that, they added this can, and for some reason, this number got duplicated here.
Oh,
And so
So
Yeah.
that's
it's got
part
double charge.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So,
because on the new one, it's
So is this
on there,
a number in half then, or it's
yes,
just,
so
okay,
it should be,
the 207.
it should be 207 because they've made an adjustment to the can during the year. So this number, instead of being 210, should actually be the 207.
Yeah.
okay,
But once, not twice. So
Yeah.
that's why it's not here as 207
I see.
again.
In
Because
July.
after doing some research and some investigating, they found out that can is gone.
okay.
These are not included in the.
So this, yeah, that becomes,
Stuff.
I use that
They
too.
don't pay
Okay, so this is, so this becomes 207, and then this goes away, or this just gets cut in half? This 49,
Yeah, I mean, it should be the 207, which is the.
207 times 120?
Yes, yeah, which should be, yeah, it should be 24,800 Which was the original number they came up with the first originally, I believe.
But see, they even went up, they just changed that much with everything.
Yeah, it should be
So.
24,840.
This should be 24,840, and then what,
And this should go away.
and totally go away.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is correct,
Uh-huh,
and this one should be
24,840, and then this number is a credit.
Right here.
Well, the credit would be the difference between, so this number is correct.
Well,
So
it'd
the
be
actual-
24,840. would
Minus-
be-
Yeah, that, and plus this. The difference between these two plus this number.
No.
Oh, okay.
So it
This
should
number
be
was
this number
that
plus
twice,
that
right?
number.
The 14 plus the 2480.
Yeah,
Just so you're aware.
would be the.
Is the correct bill.
amount.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah,
This should be the bill for the airport.
okay,
This is the bill for Melwood.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Is this just the 24 or the 23 included in that?
This, the 23 is what you're disputing, correct?
Oh,
23
yeah.
year, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
year 23,
Because
yeah.
it was. they
Right.
doubled it.
And were we just gonna try to credit that then towards 24, or what were we, what did you?
So I guess my question is, and I don't know this answer, that's kind of why I brought Rochelle. So did these amounts get paid or were were we just trying to figure it out so that they
So,
didn't get overpaid?
so they didn't get paid on time.
But they did get paid.
They did get paid,
So then we need to do a reassessment.
right, which I had been in communication with, is it Taylor Tucker? Letting him know, and I let him know back in December that they were being billed on a tax roll. And they're due December 20th, that doesn't change for anybody that is being billed. And they didn't get paid until August, I think it was, July or August.
Is that because there
They
was a
paid-
dispute going on?
They
and
paid
they
an
didn't
amount
agree with the
in
amount?
April.
Yeah,
Well, that's understandable then if we were overbilling.
Right, but I don't believe that they came to you as the Board of Commissioners to dispute that charge. They were just discussing it with solid waste.
Mhm.
And we always advise that you pay whatever is outstanding. And then once that is resolved, if there's a credit that will be credited back by the Board of Commissioners, then we refund those monies back.
And he didn't contact me until June 18th is when I
I
was
think
contacted.
that's the email thread I sent to you. You know, that there's that 6 month lack of response. Well,
So what do you calculate as being the total credit? With, with the penalties and interest? I mean, you know, for the non-payment for those 6 months, what number do you show would be?
Did you get receipts for the payments that we received? No?
No.
Okay, which parcel is it that had the 207?
So it would be the RPA.
Ending in 1004. right
Yes.
there.
But the penalty and interest could only be incurred on the amount that didn't include the amount in error.
Right.
It should have been the original
Right,
adjusted amount.
right. So if you are adjusting that, let's say the 207 units, or however many units it is, then it would automatically, our system would back off whatever penalty and interest that were assessed on those units. That were billed in error. But not the other. It would only be what we are adjusting, the number of units that were billed. So if we billed out 414, whatever it was. Then, and we're backing off 207 units. On 207 units would be removed along with the penalty and interest that was applied on those 207 units.
If those are the ones in error.
Correct,
So it'd basically be close to half of what the penalty and interest is, right?
approximately.
So did the city pay double for 6 months and then not
They
pay
paid-
anything for
They
6
paid
months?
in April of 2009.
2009.
Excuse me, April 9th, 2024 is when they paid the first installment. That if you were paying it in half.
So,
Full
so
So would
if
it that,
would have that been the total amount for the year then?
If it had been billed for the 207 units, yes.
But I thought we had been billed for almost double that.
So that's the thing is with them, they're telling us that it was 210 units is what they should have been billed for. Rather
Two
than,
hundred and seven,
Yeah, but it was the 2.7 there, and then it was
207, and
Then it got
changed-
changed to
during the
210
year, so
in
that-
July.
So,
2020.
so what's the highest of the actual number, 210? So
Mhm.
210, and then
That's what
what
was in
was the
July.
city originally billed for?
414.
414? So just under
Airport.
half,
Yeah,
just under double, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so are we talking about penalties and interests for 210 for when the city paid double? How could the city be in
Because
arrears
they
for
didn't-
half if it paid almost 200% of what it owed?
I don't think they paid it.
But I think what I heard is that the city
Yeah.
paid for half of the year,
They
then
paid an
refused to pay
amount
the second half of the year.
Okay. So they paid.
$24,840 is what they paid
On this year,
on the 2020,
23.
23 year or 24?
23. But they paid in
They paid
April of 2024,
They paid how much?
Cause you always pay the taxes.
No, it's
24,840.
Okay, so they actually paid what they thought. No, they paid the difference. Of what they were billed versus what Sarah sent them. Is about what they would have paid, which would have been.
Yeah,
half.
they paid half the whole.
Yeah, they
And the
paid
whole
half.
was reduced by half.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
they didn't pay the second
Which
half.
is close to one of the like, make it simple.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so
Here, let me get my
I
sheet.
guess, yeah, I know it's hard. and I'm a lawyer, so math is not my strong suit. That's for the engineers, but I guess my question is, did the city pay half of what
So-
it thought it owed, or did it pay half of what the total outstanding would have been? And so that was pretty close to,
What did they pay?
yeah, what was
So
the
they
bill?
paid a total of $24,840 on April 9th.
Yes, but what was,
The
what
bill.
was the full, what was
The
the full
bill
bill?
was for 49,000.
49,
Yeah, so they paid half.
680.
You paid half
680.
of the 49,680.
okay.
so
And then the other amount would be due December,
No, the other amount would have been due
June.
June.
okay,
June, and that
Okay.
would have been another 49,000.
Another 24.
Another
Another
24,840.
So the 49,000 was for the entire 23 year.
Yeah.
And you can split it up into halves,
Okay.
and so the city split that initial part into half.
Yeah.
But what was the city is not actually owing the $49,000. What was the city actually owing?
39,258.12.
Okay,
39.
so we're talking a difference here of $15,000.
Yeah, somewhat roughly.
So if you gave them credit, basically just rolled off the air and gave them credit for what they paid,
Mhm.
what would the net end up being?
Let's see what we should find. 39. 39.
Is that what it's all?
That would have been 14,418.12.
Which is what the city would still owe.
That's what they still owe you.
And if we write that off, could the city get that check cut so we can clean the books on this?
Well, this is a very busy time of year for us, and we normally don't do refunds during this time of year.
No,
But we could apply it toward the 2024.
way to take care of it,
but I
think that.
Then
I
No,
didn't
they
think they
still
paid
owe
the
us.
second half.
they did pay the second half, July 29th.
Oh, okay.
Instead of in
They
April.
did pay it.
They paid the first half April
Oh,
9th,
so-
yeah.
In the
So
second
they'll
half
just do
of
the
the
draws.
Yeah, that, I
Yeah,
think that makes
yeah,
sense.
So the second payment.
Yeah, what was the second payment?
840?
It was, let me see if I have that receipt.
So it would have been the second half. So if they paid the second half, then you owe them the bill.
That's how it is.
Come
We
to
have to-
you.
Yeah, we
gotta
have
share
Sherry.
the
I
one
didn't
pen.
help us pay. So on, so it was due in June.
They paid $28,443 on July 29th.
Did that include penalties and interest?
It did.
Okay, so 28,843. So that was the
No,
difference,
28,443.
443. And so the reason it wasn't 24,840 is because of the penalty and interest there. So,
Correct.
so we paid the second half. So. Okay,
Well, I think I get what happened. And you're right, a refund's owed to the city, and I think a credit, we're gonna need these services anyway, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know why we couldn't do a credit.
Yeah, I don't know why that would make any.
They're due by December 20th again, right now.
Yeah.
So if you.
that's why they were hoping we could get it figured out before we cut the check. So what is the credit? What is the amount the city will owe December 20th?
I don't know. I would have to go back. I didn't pull any of what was billed out for 2024,
Okay,
but I can get that. I think, don't you have that on your system that I can pull out our stuff?
Is it, could we just get an updated billing with that credit though? To
Yeah, we
process
would
that?
send a corrected tax statement once it's
Okay.
corrected in our system.
Right.
Okay, and we would get that in advance of when it's due? The 20th?
What's today, the 4th? Yes.
Okay.
I should.
That works. So what do you do on penalties and interest? Just back them out for the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our, I
Just
think.
leave
we
it
decided
there.
that.
You know,
Yeah.
because the equivalent of.
That's what I
error we made,
think,
That's
yeah.
what we usually, you only cancel if it's our
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
And we'll just communicate then to our staff that we'll have an updated billing that will need to get paid.
So I believe that parcel was billed out for 210 units, which is what the information that we received from solid waste.
Yeah.
When they did the reevaluation for 2024. So
So that new
at
bill is gonna be the.
$126 times 210 should be 26,460 is the amount that will be billed,
Then the difference.
and then minus what?
Minus the
Minus.
credit.
minus whatever the credit would be.
So is the new, it's 210 or 27, 207?
It's
210.
210
That's
now,
what
'cause
it
they
is.
made it
Change
together.
the
There's
difference.
extra three
Yeah.
of the-
So they went from 6 days a week to 7 days a week dumping.
Okay.
Which adds, but yet they took 1 can away, so it dumps another 3 back.
Okay, so just to be clear in my head. The bill that's due December 20th, you're gonna reprint and send that to the
So what will
city.
happen is we'll have to do the
Uh-huh.
adjustment for what the commissioners would approve as a cancellation. Once we have processed that cancellation, a new tax bill will be created and then sent as a corrected tax statement for 2024.
Okay,
Now, remember,
I mean, we're right up against that timeline, so that's why I wanna make
Right.
sure we don't end up
remember,
with.
because the city has made a lot of other adjustments on their cans, that your tax liability is going to be more different
Sure.
than what 2023.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It's just getting the credit.
Yeah, just making sure we get the credit applied to it. But it is gonna be a different amount than the 24,842.
Because even from July until now.
Things are changing, sure.
It's crazy.
Get a letter that Rochelle will put together, giving the details and the numbers, and then we'll sign off on that, so you have that memorialized and send that
Okay,
to.
I'm happy to run it. If you want to send it to Public Works, that's fine, but it usually goes to the controller's office, doesn't it? Is that,
I
Don't know.
Whoever.
This goes
we
on to the
send-
address.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
the
sure.
post office box, whatever the
Yeah.
address is on the,
We'll just let them know that it's coming. We'll let finance know that an updated billing. is-
it just goes to the City of Idaho Falls Post Office Box 50220.
Yeah, I thought it went to that unnamed Constitution Way address.
You can send it there
Yeah.
too.
We never got the bill.
That's like saying-
Send it to the wrong
Return to sender, yeah. Every time we do that.
Right?
So this is an action item. Do you need an action in
I
order
need
for
an
the
action.
commissioners? So I would make the motion that we waive the penalties and interest for the 2023.
For the 207 units.
Yes, for the 207 units.
And she'll put that down in a letter for us to sign. You okay with that, John?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Agreed.
Thanks, Michelle.
And as soon as you can.
I will do it today.
Okay. It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's the county.
That's good customer service.
So how often are you guys making these adjustments? Because we have to have a timeline of when that just stops. We put these on our tax roll. Everything starts in September, by the 1st of September, after all the budget hearings are completed. So we need to have a, like, let's say July 1st, however it sits July 1st, that's how it's going to be billed out.
So the,
So,
part of the problem with some of the things the city does is they have seasonal cans or these temporary cans like that 30-yarder, and so it adds and takes away during the year. So somewhere through there, we have to have like a set date as for those adjustments, like for the,
Melaleuca, the golf courses, you know, cause some years it's 3 months, some 8 months, it just depends.
Depends on the weather,
Absolutely.
because the golf
And
course
so-
is even.
So is that, if
Yeah.
we just had Jordan kind of work with you on what those are, because I'm sure they're counting those.
yeah, now we work with Amanda on almost. a daily
Amanda's been
basis
amazing,
because
but
they change it.
We're wondering about changing it to just a set
So can we do so are you guys happy with a 6 month?
6
Because
months.
if you get an early snow, they're gonna close the golf courses, and like this year, they're still golfing, so that
Yeah.
would be 8 or 9 months, so can we go
That's-
6 on, 6 off?
That's what they do.
Or
in
9
other
months.
areas that aren't quite as complicated as yours, but
I don't know how else we would do that, but if.
Yeah,
we
like
thought-
Melaleuca,
or a
they're 7
9
months.
Melaleuca's 7 months, and that's pretty much a set schedule from April till.
Yeah,
But if we just made it across the line
for 6.
at 6, that way it's fair.
Are you-
Fair, whatever.
Are we happy with that? I mean, do you feel like you're getting a fair share? Some years, if you catch a late fall or a late spring, early fall, you might not get your full 6 months, but in other
Sure,
years
you might
like
get
this year,
9.
you're getting 8 or
Yeah.
9.
Could we do like we do on our snow contracts and go this year's bills based on last year's use? And it just rolls up every year? Or is that too far for you?
you could do a 3-year rolling average. Which would even it out a little more.
so you have to go back.
Well, what
for
I'm
3
hearing,
years
it
to
would
see
make it
how
so much
often
easier
come
for you
back.
guys. If it's just a 6 month every year,
Yeah,
Could be simplified.
then
But there's still going to be those instances where they run those temp cans. And so that's gonna have to be kind of a floating. What's that?
The temp cans.
Like, if they pull a 30-yarder over there for a month, then we have to charge them an additional, cause it's a temporary can, it's not an assessed.
Or it's seasonal.
Like at the, like
Like
any of
Melaleuca.
the
Well, it
places.
could be anywhere really, like the
Mhm.
city would just call you and say, we need a 30-yard
Yep.
dumpster here, and
Yeah.
you deliver one, and you're
Well-
trying to figure out how to capture that cost.
They deliver them,
Well,
I
that's-
guess, and then they tell us, hey, we put this can here.
Can't you look at the last 3-year average of what it's taken on that, just set that? And as long as they don't deviate from that dramatically,
Captured in the next average as the average rolls up?
Maybe like Commissioner Walker said, maybe, because if we have to have this done by September, so that you guys.
So
have it by
I need it prior to September.
Okay,
So your cutoff would need to be, I'm gonna say July 1st.
okay, so if we just look.
So
at
that
it
you're
as
able to
July.
go out, do your audit or whatever
Part
it
of,
is.
yeah,
in
part of the
week
problem with
to
that
get it
though
to
is
us.
there's still gonna be use after that, but I guess we could carry that to the next year.
So you could look at what you did in your, like, for this year, so if you're doing 24, right, you could look at what the average use was in 23.
Yeah.
And just bill off of, okay, this was their number in 23, so that's what we're gonna bill for 24. And just kind of do it retroactively, right? So you're billing on what their previous year's use was, and if
And we could do that.
it, eventually it's gonna make up for itself.
That would make it a little easier, I think, in the sense that we would just, okay, we're just gonna bill out that same amount for this year. You can
Yeah,
give us
change
the
it.
updated for the next
That
year.
sounds like the
Mhm.
easiest
Yeah.
option for
that's a
everybody.
And then we can just internally track what we're doing, and then we would
Yeah.
have a surprise. It would just be like, oh, we knew that bill was coming because this
From
is what we
last
used
year.
from the prior year.
Yeah.
It would be looking backwards, which is easier than trying to
Right,
project
which is how we-
forward.
That's how we work
I
our
think that'll be
lighting
easier.
districts,
Yeah.
is in
Okay.
that same sense.
And
Yeah.
what John's talking about, we have a contract with Canopies County for a little portion of the county for snow removal.
Oh.
Since we lost our operator down there, and they keep track of the costs the year before. And then bill us that hourly rate on the next year. You know, some years you kind of feel like you're paying way too much, like this year. It's not snowing, but other years, like last year,
Yeah.
it was to our favor from the year before.
I think that makes it the simplest, is that you're just looking at the prior year and saying that's what we're charging, and
Yeah. I
So
think that makes-
Commissioner Reed, I know that you made a motion, but I just want to be clear on that. Once we get the credit for the double payment, does the penalty and interest, is that for the full amount of penalty and interest, or just for the
Just
overcharged amount? Because we would have
We're
paid,
gonna back that.
on the overcharged
The
amount.
overcharge, but it's basically,
It,
I think that's,
it's, the 207
whole
units
thing.
get backed
I
off.
think that the confusion caused. the
Right,
plastic
but
mistake on the
they were
forecast.
aware that they needed to have that paid by the December date.
Yeah,
That
but I
was
can understand
clearly,
them holding it as they tried to figure it out. I just
Right,
don't understand
but-
why we wouldn't. Go ahead and do the entire amount.
no, I didn't get the impression they held it for that reason. You know, they just didn't get back to them, your manager there.
Contact until June.
Well, if the county is gonna impose penalties and interest, I guess my request would be that we only capture the amount that wouldn't have been owed, so.
it would actually, because we will backdate this to the April date that it was paid, they're only paying penalty and interest on half of what they already had.
Well, and I
So if
think
that
I
makes
understand
sense.
that, but I think the city paid,
So,
I think if we go back to April, the city paid $49,000 roughly. And
so,
then when that June payment was due,
so
the city owed
the
$15,000.
city didn't pay 49,000.
24,840.
They
24.
paid 24,840.
Right,
So based on that, they had penalties and interest. The interest was 841.16. The late fees and charges were 496.80. Those two amounts would be divided into half. They would
Like
only be paying half
$600.
of the 841.16
$841.16, so we're talking
because
$1,200 or $1,300.
Well, maybe even less than that.
841.16.
By the time you cut that in half.
Yeah,
So you're talking. $13.
that's the money we're talking about. Let's just write it all off.
That's what my motion was.
We'll spend more staff time trying to figure
Figuring
it
it
out.
out.
Well, the
Okay.
system automatically does it. It's
Well,
not us figuring it.
Okay, so
So.
we're
that's-
writing off the interest and they are
better
getting
take
credit.
advantage of
all
Roger
penalty
today, he's
and
being
interest,
really
not
nice,
just-
what else do you need? Just keep it coming.
Look how much time it's taken, you know, it's not just the system that does it, there's a lot of time that goes.
Well, and there was a lot of time that I had communicating with Taylor.
Yeah.
In addition, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all had a lot of time in that.
I guess with that, we would just ask that
Yeah, well,
better communication
yep.
happen in the future and.
I do think, I mean, it'll be it'll be up to, I mean, Mark Hagedorn, we can let them know that it's gonna be billed in arrears and that Taylor will keep track of the next year, so there isn't a surprise bill and keep Mark
Yeah.
in, I mean, that,
I think it's better for everybody.
And for the extra time you spent, just tell them Merry Christmas.
Right? Okay.
Okay.
Are we good?
Mhm.
All right, I'm out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Does that resolve it?
yeah.
And you'll get updated.
Just the credit.
Yes, I think that looks great.
What's
Thank
that?
you very
We
much.
just leave them. For the 25 tax year. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a better.
What can you
The bill
actually
and-
think
Yeah.
of actually
Whatever.
what you're billing
Yeah.
for, so I'm trying to figure out.
It's easier for them, and we can keep track of it on our end.
For the adjustments.
Yeah, that's.
Have everybody.
Thanks for your patience.
Well, geez, it wasn't even your van, so now we gotta. Right, the calls from BMPO.
That's all right, chief.
For me at least,
Yeah,
have they for
me
you?
too. Yeah, yeah.
It's been nice to actually be able to get some other work done.
And I know, I'm really
To you right away.
happy with how this is.
Me too.
gone.
Yeah, I think it's been really
Because I
good.
think it's an adoptable plan. I know that's not on your agenda, so. The high capacity roadway study.
Oh.
We've had enough public comment to feel like we've got a good plan.
Thank you.
I voiced that a little bit at that one meeting I was to at the MPO.
Yeah.
And I caught a little bit of flack.
Yeah.
From some in the room, as you know,
Yeah.
not you, but I'm glad that we finally got to that
Yeah,
spot.
that was nice. It was nice to be able to use the county fairgrounds.
Yeah.
That was really a great
Oh,
facility.
good.
So, thank you.
Hey,
Good to see you
Thank you.
guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3 items off our list today, Roger.
That's right. See what
More
happens.
items to you.
Whoever's future mayor is, education.
Yeah.
There's no-
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I still can't find it. Yeah. They have a lot of institution. This is my reason. You want any of it? Yeah. This is not that I understand.
Changes so fast every year, it's just,
Well, that's.
From
it's
July
changed so
till now.
much already from
That's probably
last.
the average. The year before's best solution.
Yeah, that was a good idea, John.
We go from 207 and now it's 276 at the airport, just because they put more cans and dumping more people. Crazy.
Yeah, it's changing fast.
But that shouldn't be more costly than the golf course or the look field.
Right.
We got.
You got an item on there, I think it's
Got
for you.
an extension for subdivision.
plate.
And I've got findings, but this is a 3-month extension for Hitt Road Commercial Park plat. Was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission December 6, 2023. Their plat's currently being routed for signatures. They're just a little behind, so need an extra 3 months if you guys are good with that.
Yes.
Yes,
You want to use your stamp, John?
please. We need more ink after today.
I also have some findings. I don't know if you want to do those next or go to Lynn's
Sure.
next. What do you want to do?
Go ahead and do the findings.
I've read.
I did too.
John, I didn't send them to you because I didn't think you were gonna be here today, but.
Well, I'm not there today. I'm here.
I'm here.
Tell him those density numbers.
Yeah, basically the simple bullet points were that it would be approved, but it's conditioned upon Let me find the numbers here. Total number of residential units is limited to 450 for the entire area, so if the swap doesn't happen with the school, it still keeps the density down. And then that single family homes are required for the first 500 feet of the rezone for Iona Road moving north. So it kind of limits the density and makes it step back with single family going towards the commercial, so.
Yeah, I read through them. I'd make a motion. We approve the findings.
You okay, John?
Thank
Okay.
you.
And I'm the third.
We'll use your stamp.
Is that like a 30-point buck?
Yeah.
That song, you gotta go listen to it.
I see you put my bear in hibernation out there too.
I did.
It is. They want it to get totally wrong, but it's still
Didn't
nice
want
out
nobody
there,
to take it away.
right?
Still not as nice as the cougar.
No, it's the hands. I was looking at it the other day, the paws, pretty amateur stuff. Whoever did that didn't do a very good job.
Stuff on the back of it, addresses and stuff, so if you can just send me a copy.
Next thing on the agenda for Road and Bridge is the technical memorandum on the four-way stop warrants that we had done. We had 3 of them done. After we met last week, I did get a hold of him and he is comfortable and has changed his analysis to recommend a four-way stop at all 3 locations.
Good. And that's 65th South and
It was
15th east.
yeah, 15th east and 65th south, 15th east and 33rd north, 33rd south and 35th west.
33rd, say that one again.
33rd south and 35th west.
Okay.
That is south of the school there.
Yeah.
Now, all of those, we will make sure we have all of the signs that we need before we actually go forth and do it. We'll put up the flags, we'll put up advanced warning signs, the stop warning ahead signs. We'll put the all-way placards on there. We'll try to make it as noticed as we can to make sure. We do anticipate that there is going to be some backlash, especially on that Iona Road and 15th one. We've already kind of internally talked about in the spring, we'll probably try to do a stop warrant or a signal warrant analysis and see if that would make a signal warrant analysis for that. So,
Well,
another one.
If we could let Brad Clements know and get a press release out right before we're gonna pop those four-way stops up, so we can get that out in the media as well. Just try and make sure we're covering all the bases we can to let people know.
Okay, we will make sure we have all of the signs and stuff to do that before, and we'll get with Brad, have that sent out. The next is, I want to talk about some safety tree trimming that we have. We have a very high concern on Countryside Lane. Countryside Lane and 15th East are homes. It's going south. I have a presentation here. I wasn't sure you were going to be attending, so I didn't send it to you, Commissioner Walker. I apologize for that. I have some slides there. I don't know how best for you to see them, but I don't know if you're familiar with Countryside Lane is. Commissioner Walker?
No, without looking.
So Countryside Lane is, let's see. It's north of 49th South, I believe.
So 49.
Is it south of 49th South? It is basically a dead end road with a cul-de-sac at the end. There's only one way in and one way out. It has proved to be challenging for years because of the wall of trees that are on, it would be the south west or southeast corner of 15th East and Countryside Lane.
Okay, so what are you wanting to do there?
Well, I want to be able to go out and do some tree trimming along 15th East and clean that up to the edge of the right of way. I want to clean it up high enough that it will help solve the problem of being able to look for people coming out of Countryside Lane onto homes. And in the past, I know there has been some concern from the landowner there about trimming any trees at all. If you look at the site triangle right at the intersection, it probably is out of the site triangle. But the site triangle isn't the only concern, and it would be trying to clear out enough of the branches that you can actually see traffic northbound on 15th East. In the past, there's been significant resistance to trimming those trees.
I'm moving on.
You have your presentation, your slides electronically, Lance?
I have them electronically, but I don't have them with me. I could send that to you.
Okay. Correction we're working on in the future, if we manage to bring our documents electronically, they can be shared with whoever's on Zoom. Documents.
Owner there.
We have not talked to the owner right this year. In the past, there has been discussions with the landowner, but this year we have not talked with the owner.
And if they taken care of it in the past?
They have not taken care of it in the past. The ones on the south or the northeast corner have been pretty good to work with. The ones on the southeast corner have been difficult to work with, and that's where most of the problem lies.
That's the big trees.
Yes.
Suggest if you're gonna have to go down there and trim them for them, that you document very well the notices ahead of time. So they can either get it done.
Talking about removing trees that are outside the triangle?
We're not removing trees,
They just cut them back.
but we would trim along the right of way on 15th East south of the site triangle. The side triangle is measured 30 foot back from the intersection corner. That's not where the problem lies. The problem lies is that you can't see through that wall of trees at all because of how far they're sticking out into homes. And so we would be going out to trim along homes within the 50-foot prescriptive right of way and trim up high enough that we can maybe see past some of those things.
Well, one thing I'd like is to make sure we communicate with the homeowner before we go in and start cutting.
We will communicate.
Because in the past, we've missed that step sometimes. So at least that's what's been reported to us.
You know, do it in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in writing, yeah.
And we would do it in writing. There has been significant challenge before in other cases where they just don't want to communicate.
Yeah.
And if we will send the communication out to them and give them a time frame, but if they don't communicate back, this road is not going to be plowed for snow at all if we don't have some some more safe vision there.
I think we're well within our rights to do it. For safety reasons, we have to do it. I would just like to see us send a certified letter to them explaining what's gonna happen. Return receipt so that we got some proof that we made every effort to let them know before we went and started cutting.
It's the biggest complaint, is they
I
don't
don't
think
think
we're
we're
doing very
invented.
artistically, usually. And if they get their own tree trimmer in there, they could.
Yeah.
That could be part of the letter, if you would prefer to do the trimming on your own.
And then that usually is part of the letter that we'll give them 30 days or whatever the time frame is that we decided. And say, if we'll give you time to do this, if not, we're gonna come in and trim.
So it's grown out enough that you can't plow the snow there.
It's grown enough that if you're coming out from Countryside Lane, the front of the plow is past the center line of the road before the driver can see if a car's coming. And if you're in a grader, you're even further than that.
It's a little different, but my wife asked me if I had reminded you. Or ask about it, roundabout at First Street, out by Good to Go. As you come down and narrow that down. Those merge lanes in the dark. Those end abruptly and the canal is just right there. Would it be a good idea to put some barriers there or reflectors? It's in the dark. You come around that and as you go to merge. all of a sudden
Is that
south,
northbound
going
or
south?
southbound?
Yeah, south is bad.
Yeah. I mean,
Put up a sign that says.
Northbound it widens to the 5 lanes, so you're fine, but coming out of that, it goes down and
Yeah.
the canal's still open on the right-hand side there.
Okay, I don't think you want concrete barriers, but we can look at some reflectors or something like that.
But you can't see it. We came around that one night. And that's on you pretty quick.
With talking about tree trimming and certain locations. David has also been working with a landowner out in Lazy Eight that he wants to talk about.
Yeah, so John went out and did an inspection and he apparently filled in the drainage swale. Planted 2 pine trees in the right of way, which aren't allowed for standards. He was feeling like we were picking on him and he wanted some kind of a compromise and realized that, if you cut the grass out now, it's probably gonna kill it. It's not gonna grow right now. So that was what we come up with. We'll go ahead and give you a pass on it if you remove the trees. And then gave him until April 15th to get the drainage swell back in there.
And reseeded.
Right, so the water will get off the road.
It's just new construction.
It is on a new barn. Anyway, went out there today, the pine trees are still there. I called him and, just to get some communication going, maybe he couldn't get his landscaper there to find out what was going on. And he pretty much, was like, I'm not gonna remove the trees. I said, well, okay, I guess we'll have to come do it.
But you
Said, yeah, you go ahead.
Or you remove the trees this fall.
We would probably remove them. Well, like I said, I want to work with him. If it's, his landscaper can't get there for a week, then, well,
How big are the trees?
they're only 5-6 foot tall right now, but
They were planted this year.
yeah, just a few months ago.
So we could use them for Christmas trees.
Of the
So anyway,
the trees, they should be transplanted. They should be
They
picked,
could,
replanted.
and that's why when they talked to him, they met with him. He signed an agreement that he would do it within 10 days of the letter. That time frame has passed.
How far?
been about 15 days. But, like I said, I called him, I want to work with him, I don't wanna go out there and tear him out if we don't have to, but he was supposed to get with his landscaper and get me a somewhat firm date.
Is there other trees in the swells out there in Lazy Eight?
There's a lot of swales out there that after the fact have been filled in, and now the sod is 6 inches higher than it's
But do other people have trees planted in them? You know,
not pine trees.
Well,
The only pine trees are
stick tree,
are outside the right of way.
the only reason I ask is because he called me when all this was going on. I just told him it's up to Road and Bridge to decide what to do, but. Part of his complaint was, well, I feel like there's a bunch of other people out here that are in violation too. And how come all their trees aren't taken out, which I explained to him, well, that's after the fact, after they've gotten their inspection passed, so it's a little harder, but.
That's the same thing I explained to him, after they get their CO, then
I just wonder if we go take them out. And what about all the other ones that are out there? Just my only thought, but.
I
If he
guess,
wants them all treated the same. his neighbors
John
can
is-
Thank you.
Yeah,
John's following our standards.
yeah, no, and I'm fine with that, like I say, that was his one comment to me, and I just was like, I don't know.
I would probably give him one more chance, sound like you're trying to do that, just call him and say, we've got to take him out on this date if you.
In a letter,
Yeah,
or some type of document.
where they were just planted this year, what a waste of money if he doesn't go in and just move them.
Well, that's what I explained to him, if we take them out, we'll do the best we can, not to destroy them. Where do you want them? Cause he wanted to save them, so.
Oh, so you're gonna.
instances, we've gone out and forced encroachment on the right of way. And now that it's obviously, you're aware of it, that there's several of them in the neighborhood, I think we're wrong to enforce it with him, even though it's over a CO. If his next door neighbors went in after their CO, knowing that they weren't supposed to do that and did it, we should serve notice to all of them, or we should change the rules. We should either enforce them unilaterally, or we should change the rules so that they're unilaterally treated.
The only reason.
No different than a guy up in Coraloma building his mailbox brick out by the road after he gets his CO. We go up and tell him to move it.
It's just hard because it's a perpetual problem, even with driveways, we run into the same thing, right? It's like. You go tell them, hey, you can only have 30 feet, and they cut it back, you sign it off, and you drive out there the next week and it's poured back to 35 feet, it's such a hard battle to fight, and I think you guys are doing the right thing by telling him he needs to move them, I don't disagree with that, long term, I don't know how you
Especially
deal
a
with
pine
them.
tree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cause then you run into this problem we just talked about.
Yeah.
So, I'm
Guy
agreeing.
on Lane, that every time he moves his shrubbery out closer to the road, or when it gets out closer to the road and it gets tangled up, we tell him, well, you can't have your shrubbery there.
I don't think a lot of them understand that, county right of way is county property.
right.
I mean, if you were to try and do this to your neighbor, they'd shut you down, so.
Just tell them we can cure it all. Put the expressway through there.
Let's check with Lisa on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing the right thing, I just was curious, so.
Speaking of issues, I've got to call him back. The guy from Swan Valley. Aspen Heights up there. Is that a summer home subdivision?
I'm not familiar where that is.
Is it right up against Palisades, kind of on the backside?
Yeah, he's complaining because he has a summer home and now he's getting the full year's bill.
doggone it.
Huh?
Doggone it.
Still a home, still a unit.
Yeah, and I'll have to call and explain to him.
Might need a
He
new
said
pickup.
he said we never used the landfill. you never create garbage and nobody hauls it off.
Everybody creates garbage.
He's been up there forever, I guess.
Sure his neighbors don't Airbnb their summer home.
Yeah, they're probably Airbnb at the other half.
I have another letter just for you to review. We talked about this a little bit ago. It's Mark Bradford and the easement on 25th East and 49th North where we need that easement. He was requesting full market value of purchase. So Michael Scott has drafted this letter. I wanted you to just see it before we send it back to him. And saying we're standing by our offer of the 50% value for an easement. Since he's not interested in selling the property at full market value. If you're okay with that, I'll have Michael Scott send it out to him.
I think it's fine.
And then there's another one that is, this is on First Street. The property owner, we've been working with this property owner all the way along. We haven't got it closed yet, but it hasn't got to a point where we felt like we had to do eminent domain or anything like that. She does want she wanted some changes to the right-of-way contract. And rather than change the right-of-way contract, I said, maybe we can propose an amendment to the contract. That way we're not changing the actual legal verbiage in the contract itself. And that first page is some of the changes that she wanted. She wanted to advance as much as possible advance notice during construction timeframes, 48 hours. She wanted to coordinate the location of the driveway, and all of these things are stuff that we would normally do anyway. But she wanted a couple different changes in the contract. So I'm proposing that we send this back as amendments to the contract rather than rewriting the contract.
She already signed the contract.
She has not signed the contract yet, no.
Are any of these requests that she has a problem for the county?
I don't believe any of them will be a problem for the county.
I wondered about the clustering of mailboxes or what she's requesting there, not a big.
No, not a big deal. We were planning on working with her anyway.
Okay.
So, okay. I'll have Michael Scott send that back out to her. She's never stopped communicating, but she has been very slow at communicating. And hopefully we can get this done and get it out of the way.
I was just showing him that, are all these still here? Cause this is what he was talking about.
Yeah, there's a center line monument there, and I didn't have a tape measure, but I pasted off, and those trees, they're about 32 feet out.
So they're just barely behind.
Just outside the right.
There's a lot of them too.
So is that 60-foot right away?
So they're out of the way.
Yeah.
All of these trees.
The base of the tree is probably 2 foot outside of the driveway.
Probably set right on.
So they probably grow into
Oh,
it, but
definitely.
Where
But
was
the
that?
one where these are at is hard.
yeah, I can't see his cause they're in the barn portion, but
Where-
it's anyways.
What were you looking at, Austin?
Just the property across the street from his and all the trees that they have, but David says they're just barely behind the right of way, so. That's what he was asking me about, so I just pulled it up.
Yeah, when I was talking to him, they looked like they were, and so I said, yeah, well, maybe we'll send your neighbor a letter also, and then I got out and paced, and was like, no, they're either at the right of way or just behind, so.
Crazy.
10 years, well, 5 years, you're gonna be trimming those back.
Yeah.
We may be, I mean, at least in Lazy 8, the roadway is 28 foot top and the right of way is a 60 foot. So I mean, there's some space there. So if they're at the right of way line, they're gonna have to grow
It's on a
a long
straight
way.
stretch too, so it's not like it's on a corner they're gonna have to go a long way to block anything.
And if this guy had moved his trees back 4 or 5 feet, it'd probably be just fine.
So what would you
And the
do if
same
you
thing.
removed them? Would you have the bulb
Yeah, they were just planted here a few months ago, so I don't think they're even.
Do you have one of those?
We don't have one of those.
No, I was thinking if we did it, we'd probably just take a strap of some sort, wrap around the bottom and use a backhoe to.
Did they leave them in the metal baskets? Did they plant them in
I don't know.
baskets?
I didn't notice if they were or not.
If they did, that would make it easy.
But I doubt they would have, if it especially metal baskets, cause you wouldn't wanna do that to your own trees and plant them with a metal basket around the root ball.
Yeah,
I
usually
left
it's
my metal baskets
burlap or
on.
something.
Stunt their growth, that's for sure.
I left them in metal baskets and they
didn't
grow
stop.
out.
Okay.
Basket rots and, about 5 years.
That's normal, Brian, like you've done. Like landscaped, 100 LDS churches and stake centers, and all of them are dropped in their baskets.
Oh, yeah, if they're in, that would make it easy.
It's not worth the risk of fracturing the root ball when you're putting it in if you take that basket off.
That's
That
all I have.
actually, that guy approached me at the Innovation Center gala that I went out to, Brian. He was a keynote speaker out there. He's the #1 entrepreneur in the Western United States, and has made oodles and gobs of money doing what he does. And he wasn't happy at all. And I sent him to Austin because he just said the inspector and his CO. And so I said, well, you go talk to Austin about this. So sorry, Austin. Didn't mean to throw him at you. And he was.
He knows who I am anyways, because he knows my wife, so he's called me before, so it was no biggie.
What, the guy with the trees you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. So rules are rules. That's what I told him. I said, if you put it in and it's not the way it's supposed to be, and you knew what it was supposed to be, and you put it in anyway, then yeah, you want to be able to use your party palace for Christmas, but you got to do what's right to get your CO so that you can. His garage shop thing is a big party house for the family gatherings.
In the middle of a wedding. What do they do along?
Venue.
It's huge.
A reception.
Center, yeah.
Non-commercial.
Wade, did you have anything? We've made you sit here through a lot of our.
I did not. Here to listen. So I have one thing, but I just need guidance. We've got about 35 people that are
Almost
60
forgot
to
for
90
that.
days
Still
behind.
quiet.
And some of those on that list, we have actually given, we believe we've given them to our legal counsel to have them send letters to. So Leanne's gonna put a list together that shows all of the, where they're at 30, 60, 90 days, and if we have sent letters.
Not the household fees. This is other.
No, this is, yeah.
Household fees?
No,
Oh,
no,
because
just
I
the
was gonna
charge accounts that we have at the transfer station. So mostly commercial businesses. We'll get those lists together, but some of those have had the letter sent to them with no response, return letters, stuff like that. So who do we give that to, or who do we bring that to have, can we write off the ones that are past due for years, that have already had the letter sent to them?
Are they still dumping with us?
No, we
Oh.
shut them off after 60 days. There's no disposal after that, but some of these are 3 or 4 years.
Just make a list of recommendations for.
And then bring them to here.
Yeah, kind of explain why you think they're not collectible.
Okay, we'll get that list together and I'll get with Lance and then we'll put it on.
Then it depends on the amount too. If they're smaller amounts, it's not worth probably the legal.
Okay, we have in the past given those lists to the legal counsel and had them write a letter to them.
asking for payment or demanding for payment or however they did it. I've never seen the letter. But obviously, some of them never respond. They've filed bankruptcy or moved out of the country or whatever. We're still packing some of that as a, you know, trying to collect.
Where are they on the engineering on 49th North? That we got the. So are we just sending it to Rocky Mountain?
Yeah, I'll have to do with them. I've got another meeting with them. I think tomorrow. I'll get an update on how far they are.
When do we pay them or have we paid them?
We have paid a couple invoices so far.
I'd like to try to collect from the developers when we can. I don't know what you guys think timing wise on that, but
As soon as we get the billing, we should be splitting it up.
Oh, I can copy you on the bills that they come in. The ones that we received on that road and send them to you.
and I'd just like to try to collect that while you guys are still around if we can, so.
Do you want me to send them to you to collect? Do you want me to, I mean, how do you wanna go?
I
about
was just
collecting?
thinking we've got all their agreements to pay. So I was just wondering, and I don't know if you have a way that if we just send them an invoice. Say we've been,
I mean, I can create an
can you just
invoice,
create an
but-
invoice?
But based on if you help me figure out what percentage of what length. or
Well, I
whatever.
think we just collect the whole thing.
Okay,
So I'll just send you the amounts that they said they would contribute, and then we can just send the invoices out and get them paid.
okay,
Cause at some point, we're gonna have to pay it anyways, so it doesn't matter if that money just holds for a minute and we use it to pay some of this preliminary or whatever, so. I'll send you those amounts today.